Hey everybody, Mr. Lambert here. Just taking a little break and having a snack. But this apple right here, this is exactly what we're talking about in science this week. So last week we talked about photosynthesis. Now, this apple grew on a tree, which made energy through photosynthesis. Pulled in water from the ground, carbon dioxide from the air, used sunlight to create sugars. Now, those green leaves creating photosynthesis, they store the sugar, and then the sugar moved throughout the apple tree. The apple tree eventually used some of that energy to create fruit. Because we talked about angiosperms last week, and gymnosperms, an apple is an angiosperm. It's a tree that has a flower. That flower has a seed down at the bottom of it, and when the flower pollinates, that seed or the flower actually ripens up and becomes the fruit. The seed's actually, well, you can actually kind of see it on the inside there. The seed is actually inside the fruit. But also, while it's making this fruit, some of that glucose, some fructose and sucrose, which are all sugars, are made and produced inside the fruit. Now I get to enjoy those sugars by eating the apple. So that photosynthesis has created a bunch of different energy in the form of sugar that I'm going to use to go throughout the day so I'm not hungry, so I can make videos, play with my kids, talk to my coworkers, all those kinds of things. My body's gonna do this through a process called cellular respiration. Now, it's kind of complex, and you're gonna watch a video on it, but don't worry, the video is gonna stop and ask you questions right when you need to know the information. There are three parts to that cellular respiration. The first is glycolysis. Basically, my body's gonna break down the sugars and use oxygen and hydrogen from the water in my bloodstream to create new chains of energy called ATP. The ATP then flows on to the next part of the cycle called the Krebs cycle, which through a real complex series of actions actually creates more ATP from the ATP that was there in the first place by combining it with some other materials, making citric acid, among other things. The last piece that it's going to go through is once it's gone through glycolysis and the Krebs cycle, it's going to do what's called the electron transport chain. And there are tiny little parts of my cells called mitochondria. They're going to rip electrons off of my ATP and some other molecules that are created, and they're going to run along the outside of the cell membrane, and then they're actually going to jump together with some other molecules to create even more ATP. Now, the ATP is just like, well, money for your cells. It's stuff that it can exchange in order to get the cell to do biological processes that keep you alive. All that to say, there's a lot of stuff happening every time I take a bite of this apple and then digest it to keep me going. That energy, though, coming from the plant, is going to roll through the plant, which is called a producer, into me, which is a consumer, which basically just means I'm eating or consuming it. And then it will go back into the ecosystem, either through the processes that I go through every day, or even when I die, the leftover processes from all of those things that are happening to keep me alive. When they're not keeping me alive anymore, all my cells will break down and become part of the process all over again, because the nitrogen and other things that are in my body will break down into the soil, and the plants will use that to start the process all over again. So today is our first look at all of that. But hey, grab yourself an apple, enjoy the sucrose, fructose, and glucose, and get watching or reading. All right, have a great day.